Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Good morning, everybody. 2nd of November. I sound pretty good right now, but I feel like shit. Anyways, let's go to the charts. Hey, we'll talk about the Treasury in a second. S&P 500 yesterday kind of struggled a little bit, yeah? I mean, they came down in the overnight action, and then just all morning it was kind of chop back and forth. And even now in the overnight session, there's still constraints. So, I don't know. It's not necessarily a huge deal, but I mean, come on, it's just crazy. It's just unusual. Why am I saying crazy? You see, I don't necessarily feel very good today. But yeah, it's a little bit unusual for this market, yeah. Today we come over to the 10-year Treasury. And yesterday, the Treasury yields rose quite a bit. So I was, expecting some hawkishness on the yields. And we just didn't get that yesterday. So I kind of feel like my whole pre-FOMC plans are just kind of shot. Because clearly somebody thinks they know something that I don't. So I'm hands off here. I don't know if we don't have a lot of news today. So of course we'll see what happens if I catch anything in the flow, especially if I see something that really makes me think that they're going to push for higher rates, then maybe. But I'm thinking to be a little bit hands off. Oil, well, we're getting a little bit of a down move here this morning. Oil, natural gas, yesterday natural gas did not do so well, but they're recovering. And in all honesty, this is just kind of like a retrace of this gap, right? Which tends to happen. Gold and silver recovering the losses from the weekend. This is pretty good. And Kappa having a little bit of a decline. So I don't really show it here, but apparently steel had a pretty ugly night. Some of these metal commodities are doing really poor, while the other ones like soybeans and stuff. So if I just come over here, you can see, Bitcoin is up. Soybeans up 0.5%, corn up spot 47%, like the grown commodities seem to be doing well and the metals aren't. So that's where we are. Sorry, you're not feeling well. Well, you know what happened? Like yesterday, I didn't necessarily get to sleep when I normally should because I was talking to somebody, but then the baby decided to wake up in the middle of the night again and not go back to sleep. So I never really got a very good rest yesterday, unfortunately. But I mean, I guess it's okay because, I don't know if I really have a good play here today. What would make you stop believing in the existence of God? I kind of think that you miss the, okay. If I were to see substantial evidence that a belief in God was substantially harmful to my well-being, then it would be like, coffee, no. Coffee didn't have the same effect on me. You see, the whole thing is that I think that humans have a great ability to compartmentalize, and that it is worth it to you to do that, compartmentalize, and have faith in certain things because it is beneficial to your well-being. Right? I've never said it like that outright, but that's kind of what I've been trying to say to you guys, right? It's relevant to trading for two reasons, right? One is because trading is really stressful, and so working on your emotional well-being is like a really big challenge to trading. That's one of the biggest challenges, the thing that I think everybody struggles with. And those are the sorts of things that can help your well-being, okay? Because if you feel like that you're being persecuted by the world because you're atheist or whatever, like you think that you are killer, like you have to ask yourself, does that help you trade better? And I would argue that it probably doesn't. Like I would argue, my take is that sometimes it's just better to go along with the flow. But can you point to a specific thing? Like, I don't know. Because the thing is that it doesn't exist right now. It's kind of hard for me to think about a potential scenario that I don't think exists, isn't it? But the second reason why it's, I think, relevant to trading, and why I'm actually into talking about it when we do talk about it, is because I'm trying to make a point to some of you that it's a part of human nature to believe in things without having the evidence. Like it's a fundamental. How do you put it? It's just that's the natural thing that we have evolved to do. Creationism and intelligent design don't count as science. Well, did I ever say that they counted as science? I said they try to use science to back up their things, but it's very, very flawed what they say, isn't it? But that wasn't my point on that, right? My point on that was that I think that the school has an obligation to teach people about all perspectives on controversial and culturally significant issues. That was my point on that one, right? Oh, okay. If you can't think of any specific thing that would convince you otherwise, then it simply isn't science. I don't think that that's it completely. So I get what you're saying. So there's kind of this thing where you're saying if it's something that cannot be negated, then it's not a scientific thing, right? There are some ideas that cannot be negated, like the idea that there's a God, but he has set everything up. There's an all-powerful God, but he has set up everything in order to never be able to prove that he exists because he wants you to believe on faith, right? That can't be scientific because you can never falsify that. By its very nature, you can't falsify it, right? But that doesn't mean that there could be something that at the time you can't falsify, but maybe later on you would. What is your core order book theory? Well, I think that if you really wanted to get down into the most technical details about it, I would say that there is kind of like a 3 or 4 pronged keys that I look at, that I approach the markets to, right? Number one, markets are fairly statistically efficient, but not very informationally efficient, right? Number two, orders move price. And number three, prices are inelastic. You could certainly teach those in associate. Well, why not? I mean, I think that you should teach it where it's relevant, right? So when they come into the evolution chapter, I think that a large portion of the it being as controversial of an issue, that it's worth the school spending time on that issue. It helps people understand the world. It helps them understand other people, and that's the best place to put it. Now, they don't have to spend a whole semester on creationism, but I really fail to see why people get so offended if there is, a few paragraphs about competing theories in the book, right? I really think that is not born out of some sort of, we're just trying to keep things scientific or whatever. I think that is more born out of a desire to try and put a finger on the scale and and try and have more influence over what people believe than you probably should. How is that mechanically usable not to hit a stop? What do you mean by that? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter whether they're scientific theories or not. They're like I didn't say that. Did I say these should be included because these are very scientifically valid theories out there that should be considered? That's not what I said, right? I said they're culturally significant and controversial issues that are relevant to the science. They're not scientific, but the science impacts the culture and the politics and everything else. And in cases where that happens in science, that it is, we should talk about it. Just like when you're talking about the theory of evolution, you talk about the history behind the theory of evolution. You talk about how Darwin came to that theory, and you talk a little bit about how that theory has evolved over time and has affected the world. And I think that if you don't do that, that you're not completely fulfilling your mandate, your moral mandate to educate people. Oh, that's what? That's funny. I've done that before. Gus was showing me something he did to a chart, and yeah, I've used that before. The funny thing about it, Gus, is that maybe not the last 6 months, but in the post-COVID environment, that sort of thing worked really, really well. I'm just trying to explain why the courts ruled against it. Well, but I don't think that the courts ruled against the specific thing that I'm talking about, right? Like, in fact, the specific thing that I'm talking about is just what the law is in Texas right now, right? You'd have to cite the specific court case they're talking about. But the thing that I'm saying is that's like what the Texas law is right now. So I believe that it's written into their law that says that they're not required to teach any of these sorts of things, but then if they do teach them, that they should give note to multiple perspectives on issues that are controversial. So we did get a little bit of selling there. Maybe they're gonna sell today. What do you think? The flow? Well, there was a little bit of selling flow in here, but it's kind of hard because the overnight flow was not all that much, and these are only a few hundreds, but it did move the needle. Man, but they're coming back. Yeah, it's still kind of doing this same thing where it's like they kind of hint that they're going one way, but like even if they do go down, they bounce hard, it seems. Oh, sure, we'll turn the robots on. So you know what was funny was yesterday, right when I was saying, the robot didn't do very well. But like it came back and he made a little bit of money. He made a little bit of money in the end yesterday. See it come through here. The ticker tape is running well. Yeah. I had to adjust the camera a little bit for it to work because with the way that I was doing it before, I really had to have a wide aperture. I would really like just kind of another one of those things that makes me want a full frame camera. You were learning ultra bonds. I tell you what, you can get some good scalps in ultra bonds, but it's brutal when it doesn't work out. I've seen a couple of people that did really well on ultra bonds for a while, but they kind of disappeared, so I kind of assumed that they blew out eventually. What are they saying here? Jake Sherman, Senator Joe Manchin now says he doesn't really know whether he'll vote for the BBB, says he could go either way. Progressives don't want to get left holding the bag. They say they are ready to vote even after Manchin muddied the waters. Mods are now worried about him. Concerning the price tag, yes, because the Congressional Budget Office has to score it, right? Progressives who have been holding the line for weeks have softened their opposition in part because they don't want to be blamed for the continued delay in advancing Biden's legislative agenda, especially following last week's debacle over the bipartisan infrastructure deal. What you're saying, NASDAQ trader, still doesn't make sense to me. How do you reconcile between informational inefficiency and inelasticity at a small enough scale to not hit a small stop? You've got to know when the meta order is coming in. You just have to be able to time it. You have to be able to time it. I like how instead of the infrastructure deal, they'll always make sure to add the bipartisan in there. Yeah, it is. Like, really. You kind of have to wonder at this point, because when this started, it seemed like we really, really need a bipartisan infrastructure deal to keep this economy going well and to be competitive. And now it doesn't really feel like that. No, it doesn't really feel like that. They want to offer Biden a win. I don't know. I think the worst thing they could do for their party at this point is try and pass that other bill. I think if they just left stuff alone and got out of the way, the economy would do its thing. I'm not so sure about that one either. Yesterday I was talking about, you need to have supply side stimulus too. But I think that the reality is that even if you had supply side stimulus, maybe it would alleviate some of the issues, but that you would probably still have issues just because it's such a complicated system that you can't, you're never going to be perfect about it. There's always going to be, frictions. How do you time it? Right question. Okay. So there's a couple of things that we can use to time it. Number one is just knowing the news, right? And being there when the thing happens and being ready. Some of it is just the pace of the trading day, right? Like if I want to execute a large buy meta order, buying a ton of stocks, I'm going to wait until the market is open because that's when the liquidity is there, right? And there are certain kinds of operations that are going to make sense to be done at certain times. Another edge that you can utilize is that when the order book becomes constrained, it takes a certain amount of time for the order book to recover. Now, again, like why do you guys insist on straw manning my arguments and trying to put words in my mouth and things that I didn't say? What did I say? I said that on issues where there is controversy or culturally significant issues, the schools have an obligation to show multiple perspectives, and that they should do so when it is relevant. So when you are teaching about evolution, I think that you should share that there is a culturally controversial issue and talk about it, because that helps them understand the world. That helps them understand what's going on. And I don't think that you're giving them everything that they really should know. Otherwise, there is controversy. 30% of people, being adamantly opposed, not believing in an idea is controversial. It is, whether you want to say that it is or not. That's fairly significant on an issue like that. It's not as controversial as was, right? When we were kids, it was more like 55. Truth isn't, it doesn't matter, Ace. Again, it's controversial. You see, here's what you just did. I said, it's a controversial issue. You said, no, it's not. I proved that it was a controversial issue. You changed the subject. That's like really shitty arguing. Come back when you have a good argument, please. You say in a different class? Well, I mean, maybe if they had classes about that, but I just don't. I still explain to me this. What exactly is the harm? What exactly is the harm when your science book has a few paragraphs that there are competing theories, right? What is the harm if in one, 5-10 minutes in class, you acknowledge that there's different perspectives on it and that it is a controversial issue, and you talk about, the news and everything surrounding that is controversial. Explain to me why that's so awful. Because you're all acting like we're killing babies here because of that. Oh, actually, I take that back. You can kill babies and that's just fine. False. It's not harmful. It's not. The idea that allowing somebody to know about that somebody has a belief in something, even if it's wrong, it's not harmful for people to know that people have wrong beliefs out there. That's just absolutely silly. You have them blocked. Okay, are there any other false ideas that you can think of in society that are controversial and culturally significant? I can think of one. Critical race theory. Controversial. It's false, quite frankly. A lot of the things that they say in it is false. Although they're kind of always trying to split the difference there, because they're saying, well, we're not saying that this X thing is true. We're just saying we should think about these within these contexts and be critical about them. Right. But a lot of the things that they are teaching about it are just objectively false. But you know what? It's culturally significant and it's controversial. So I am okay with the school talking about it and giving multiple perspectives on that issue. Yes, they should. Yes, they should. I don't know if there's a who knows. I'm not raising kids in the USA. This place is a dumb. No, it's fine. Okay. Should schools teach about masturbation? That's controversial and culturally significant and stuff. Well, I think they do, don't they? I don't know. How far do you really need to go into teaching that, though? Like that kind of goes back to the thing that's like, okay, if they wanted to spend a whole semester on creationism, I'd be like, no, that's effing ridiculous, right? Okay, but I do think it's something that that schools should probably teach, and it's something that I tell my kids that the vast majority of people do it. That's just a fact. There's not. What are you talking about? There's a lot. There's like birth rates have like plummeted. Like here's what I find. This is why I come back to it. I'm trying to get back to you on this, right? People, the way that humans work, you want to think that you work on logic. Okay, I take Adderall that makes me more logical, but even as logical as I will get and as hyper focused on things that I will get, I have come to realize that there is still a very strong emotional component to it that you like almost impossible to escape from, simply because we're human. And some of you in this channel seem to think that you are immune to that. Ace, you are behaving on this school issue exactly. You're doing exactly what you hated the Mormon Church so much for. You are trying to hide information from people that is inconvenient, that you don't want people to hear because you think that it's wrong. And that's not your decision to make. If it's a culturally controversial, when it's something that a lot of people believe and a lot of people don't believe, we are doing people a disservice by not talking about it. And that was one of the mistakes. I think that they're doing better about it now, but that was one of the mistakes that the church made, because there was a lot of things that they just said, oh, we just don't talk about that. Now they do, but come on. You say you hate the harm that false beliefs cause, but that does not give you the right to control information. Stop being a Nazi. This is what Nazis are. Oh, that's harmful. You can't talk about that. That's harmful. We're not going to teach you that thing. Do you not see what that is? let people know what's going on in the world and let them come to their conclusions. Yeah, you are correct, hey Winston. The LDS Church believes that the Garden of Eden was in Missouri. Did you just make a pun? Just name one. I want my children to understand what other people in this world believe, regardless of whether it's true or not. I'm going to tell them this is wrong and here's the problems with it, but I'm going to teach them those ideas so that they are intellectually prepared to be able to handle ideas that are contrary to their own, right? What you were saying, you want to know why we have this, like, the snowflake generation? It's because of this attitude that you're expressing here. It's like we're trying to avoid talking about anything that you think is wrong. And that's not how you create resilient people, right? I want my children to be taught order flow and that technical analysis. Yes, thank you. There you go. Maybe if in school we talked about more rigorous statistics, people wouldn't fall for these strategies that are just fat tails, right? Like, here's the thing, is like how much of an obligation do you have to fight against things that are incorrect? This is something that I struggle with, right? Because I really want to go on the internet and find people that are wrong and tell them that they're wrong. I love doing that, right? But it's not necessarily like the healthiest thing for you all the time, right? You can definitely take it too far. My point is that there isn't enough time and room in this curriculum to teach every crazy idea. No, but not every crazy idea is controversial, right? There's really only like 5 or 6 issues in our society today of that nature that are truly controversial, right? Evolution, abortion. I really can't think of any other ones, to be honest, that would come up in school at least. Yeah, having a moral obligation to fight against harmful false beliefs doesn't mean withholding information from people. Oh, and then we talked about the other one, sex education. Sex education. Okay, immigration. Immigration comes up in school too, right? Because it comes up in history. You know what? I tell you what. I feel like that we were not fairly educated on immigration in school, because what I kind of noticed was that, like, it was an issue, and then in like the 1920s or whatever, they came in and they said, nah, we're just stopping this, like, we're gonna have really strict requirements and everything. And then it wasn't an issue for like 50 years, and then they changed it in the 70s again and it was an issue. Well, you're from Utah. Well, and it's also funny because when I was in school, everybody treated it like, oh yeah, immigration is great, and we should have as much immigration as possible. And then when we all grew up, it was like, oh, that's not actually the way it is. There are negative costs to immigration, and we should try and do better to form a better immigration policy. Doesn't mean don't let anybody in, but have a better immigration policy, because what we have right now is frankly a humanitarian crisis. We're not married in spite of appearances. I mean, I don't think the issue is creationism, right? The issue is evolution, right? So when you're teaching evolution, I think that you have an obligation to say, okay, evolution is still considered to be controversial in the United States society. Here are the latest polling results on this particular issue, and here are a couple of the other camps. This isn't like this. Sorry, you're not taking up like the whole semester with it. It's not. It's a trivial thing. Evolution is a fact. Origin, it being the origin of the species, is a very, very much a how would you use hypothesis theory. It's kind of interesting, isn't it, that you can have things that we can be pretty much very certain about, and we can gain great benefit from knowing them, but never be able to really, truly 100% empirically prove it, right? Like with evolution or the origin of the species, I think to really, truly empirically prove it, you'd need like a time machine, right? Stop talking, I have to make breakfast. See, I think Ace is just trying to is just playing around now. Evolution is the basis for the field of not necessarily. That's where evolution, I think, kind of gets weird because, like there's all like the evolutionary psychology, for instance. How scientific of a field is evolutionary psychology really, right? Because it's really just like we can come up with the theories, but we know that the reality is that our behavior is way more complicated than that, But we still find it useful, right? It's just kind of like sometimes the tools that we have are imperfect, right? Risk on or risk off? I don't have an opinion right now. I'm still sitting here looking at the Treasury and thinking that what I'm seeing is just not in line with what I anticipated, and that it's probably better that I don't take a position. And the E-mini, E-mini's random, so I don't know if I can say. Psychology in general is a soft science rather than hard. So yeah. Well, there's some real problems with psychology, apparently. Like I think that Taleb is making a good critique of them that I feel like it gets dismissed too easily, right? There is a lot of this science out there in some of these fields that are based on shoddy statistics. And we're saying that we've discovered all of these things and maybe even making society level decisions about them when we really don't have any evidence that it works that way. When we really look at the statistics, like we can't duplicate those results, and we can't. There's some shoddy statistics out there. What's this here, Gus? Oh, I would like this here. What you're talking about the green rectangle in the background? I don't know if that would make sense to put it down there, but probably it's not a clickable item. Yeah. You would have to tell the indicator to draw on the second panel. Does that make sense? I know, like, nobody knows what I'm talking about. They're like, what are you saying now, Seth? Do I have a good example? I don't have a good example on my charts, but you know, on this chart, I can like select the data series and I get these little points, and I can select these plots and I get these little points. But there are some things. Oh, actually, maybe I could do it with the volume. Yeah. If I click on the volume, right, I don't get nothing, right? Because it's drawn on the background and it's not a clickable object. Otherwise, you know, I'd be able to click those and drag those down into another chart. That's why it doesn't work. It could certainly, the indicator, if you had the source code though, could certainly be reprogrammed to do what you want. That's why I always try to separate science as a body of knowledge from science as a methodology of discovery. Well, it comes down to like, I think in most of these instances, it's like sciences where you can make exact calculations on things. Like there is some science where, you know, like physics, like classical physics at least, where the systems are simple enough that you can really just make very precise calculations about what's going to happen. But there are other sciences where we are trying to determine does thing X tend to lead to thing Y or whatever the deal is. But because there are so many other factors involved and the world is so complicated, you can't be exact on them. And so people call them soft sciences. But I feel like that is very often used by dishonest actors to just completely discredit an entire field. Like there's these people that out there that say like economics isn't a real science. Okay, but there are people out there that make exact calculations and use them in their business, right? So there's kind of both in economics. Economics is a BA at most universities, isn't it? What does that have to do with it? Wait, okay, so when you say BA, do you mean like it's a bachelor's degree? You saying that if it's only a bachelor's degree that it's not a science? Oh, it's a Bachelor of Arts? Oh, I guess, I don't know. I don't know what it's considered. I don't know if it fits into either of those categories. I just, you know, there are models here about these things, right? It doesn't mean that the models are 100% perfect, but there are some pretty, you know, I think that the problem that the field of economics has is that you can't just, you know, give a simple answer to people, right? Like trying to explain how we arrive at a square root law is you know, why do limit order books exhibit a square root law impact on meta orders? Like it requires very complicated math to explain that. Like that's why it's like I just tell you, like it is a thing. And I never sit and derive the equation here because it's a complicated equation that, you know, you have a book that has, you know, a bunch of chapters about it because it requires real study to get to. And everybody acts like these guys in economics are like just making shit up, but they don't just make shit up. Like there's real, you know, effective models out there that took years to develop and are very complicated and difficult to understand, and they're studying something real and there are real applications and benefits from them. This doesn't mean that they're perfect. It doesn't mean that you can predict the market, but it doesn't mean that it's like not a science or that there's not science to it. You know? Okay, news just... Jake Sherman, I just spoke to Speaker Pelosi as she entered the Capitol, and she said if she takes BBB to Rules Wednesday, the House may vote as soon as Thursday. Here's the thing. A lot of this is not new. We're just making some changes, but it has to be a new bill. Okay. Maybe it's not that psychology and sociology and economics aren't sciences, but that sometimes science isn't as perfect as we want to think it is. As good of a tool as we might have, the world is just more complicated than we will ever have the ability to comprehend. I changed my thermostat settings and the heater is not turning on, and it feels a lot better in here now. Maybe they meant to say onions are layered in the same way human psychology can be. As a body of knowledge is certainly fallible, yeah. Well, it's not even that. It's like, I think the scientific process is a very, very solid process if it's followed correctly, right? But the problem is that, like, again, that's not the way that humans work. That's our evolution. I feel like that some people don't want to acknowledge this, or they hear it and they're like, oh yeah, that's true, and they just kind of like dismiss it. I don't think they realize how significant it is. Our evolution has literally wired us to be the opposite. Our evolution has literally wired us to be groupthink. This is the way that humans work, and it's really important to understand in trading because we're wired to watch other people do something and then try and copy what they're doing and make decisions as a group go along with what their group is doing, right? And in a competitive financial game, that doesn't work. In a competitive financial game, that works against you. You don't want to do what everybody else is doing. The most popular thing is likely to fail because it becomes crowded. You're not going to make money chasing the crowd because you'll always be behind. I mean, you can try and front run the crowd. That's different, but right. And what the majority of people out there that are doing, it's wrong. You know, and part of it is just that them acting on it will eliminate any edge that there was in it. But I think that the other large part of it is just that our understanding of financial markets in these days is so much more deeper. There's so much more to learn on this. We can spend a lifetime. I have spent a lifetime trying to understand this stuff, and I think I only know like this tiny little sliver here. But most people aren't willing to dedicate their life to understanding it, right? So how much are they actually going to know? And so you end up with this huge body of people making decisions that is based on complete nonsense. And why is that? Because that's just the way people are. Well, so just because technical analysis fails in some sense, I don't think it necessarily means throwing technical analysis out the window. Well, I think that there's kind of the word technical analysis sucks. Really. Our whole, man, having the camera all the way over here is kind of difficult for me. Maybe I should move the camera back over here. It is just like really poor terminology. Like, why is something technical and not technical? And don't brag about having everybody block YouTube finance. That's not help. That doesn't help you. We gain value by bringing value to other people. Okay, so like there's a problem in the terminology, because there's one thing of like, let's look at the market and look at the past history and see if we can find tendencies in the data, right? And that would be what I think a lot of people think technical analysis is. But the problem is, like, we have done that kind of work, and what have we found? Large meta orders have square root impact. There's an inverse sine law wherein if you have a large meta order followed by a large meta order of the different sign, that following meta order has more impact. There are clustering effects. There's volatility clustering effects, which is slightly different. Okay. And there are situations where the order book becomes disrupted and it holds back price movement. Okay. These are the empirical things that we've discovered from what I would term real technical analysis, right? Is that what is taught on the internet as technical analysis? No. And so then at that point, we really have to refer, when we're referring to the word technical analysis, I feel like we really have to be talking about traditional chart patterns and the who was it? Wilder, the Wilder stuff that they introduced in the 70s is really what people are referring to when they refer to technical analysis. And then you get into market profile, which is also, like, I think market profile wasn't a scientific approach. So there's a problem with that one. They might have some things right just because they learned them from experience, and it is kind of an interesting way to think about markets, but it isn't really a very scientific approach to it, right? But so when we really get into technical analysis, what is technical analysis? Technical analysis is a collection of superstitions that originated between 1910 and 1970 that forms the basis of a large portion of uninformed retail trading that has that once we developed the tools to apply a real scientific and rigorous analysis to it, was shown to be completely false. I think technical analysis could work. The problem is you have to account for everything, and every person in the world thinks, and it's just impractical. Well, no, it's not that. It's like, again, this is why, when I'm talking about like my philosophy of things, or like the key insights that I think you need to understand. That's why price inelasticity is so important. Because when we look at the markets, you have a situation where putting $1 into the stock market increases the aggregate market cap $5 to $8, right? Like, that's a lot. The issue is that you might have an edge. Okay, let's say your edge is some technical pattern. The number of lots that is required to arbitrage that edge out of the market can be calculated. And there are firms out there that can trade that size. So it is very, very easy to arbitrage away a purely technical edge. Okay. Now, I go out there and I look at an edge like an informational edge. Okay. There could be an informational edge. Now, some of them are really big, but some of them are not. Okay. On a typical day, your typical informational edge, okay, is like X. Okay. But then there's this other price movement, which is like non-informational, but a fund is just rebalancing. And what the deal is that the impact that orders have is so extreme that the impact that will have is greater than the impact that the informational edge will have. right and so that's kind of why you get some of the stuff that we do. It's because the impact of orders is just too extreme. And then maybe there was like tendencies in people, like there's tendencies about how people tend to trade and things like that, but you'll never see them in the data because their impact and their orders are so extreme in the market that it hides it. You can't see it because it's such a tiny factor compared to these other larger things. And I mean, the thing is that we have shown that you can come and look at market data and make money from doing it. It's just the models that I've seen where they're doing that are like machine learning algorithms, right? And they're very, very short-term in nature. We're still, like, look at this. The Treasury really hasn't moved much today. So this kind of puts me in an even worse situation, because at first I came in and I said, well, I don't know if I have an informational edge today. And since I don't see a lot of economic news, I don't know if it really makes sense for me to make a move. But now what I see is that the market thinks the same thing. The market doesn't see a reason for it to move, and so it's not. So now I doubly don't want to do something, right? Of course, that could lead to that sort of thing can lead to a surprise trend, but if it happens, I will probably be left out. That was an interesting one where Elon Musk tweeted the electric car maker had not signed a contract with Hertz. Shares closed at a record high on Monday and gained nearly 18%. That was kind of weird, wasn't it? But really, the whole run that the stock has had off of that story was really just irrational, right? Here again, it's like informational inefficiency. What the company should be worth based on that deal going through is not what they're putting it out on the market right now, because the number of people that want to buy it just because they heard that is just moved the price so far that it's just gonna outprice it so easily. You gotta apply solid holistic concepts about what are strong and weak moves in general. No, I don't think so. I think that you have to use a scientific approach still, right? Because there are scientific properties about markets that we can use, and we can apply the scientific approach to informational inefficiency, right? We can come and look at the market and we can say, okay, this piece of news was released here, and during that time we saw that move. That is therefore evidence that this move was because of this thing. This is not proof, but then we continue to gather more information, try and find information that contradicts or confirms those theories. And then we can, make up, we can determine some situations where we can go, okay, well, I believe based on what we know about markets that interest rates should be rising, but they didn't rise last week. And based on our best theories, it didn't rise last week because of a short-term liquidity concern. Therefore, there is an informational inefficiency in the market that suggests that we should be able to, sell the treasury, right? You still want to try and take a scientific approach to it. Because otherwise, you're just going to end up guessing. see, oil's doing some crazy things this morning. Oil's down pretty big here. I need to do something about it. I feel like my monitors are like, I need to do something. I'm like twisting my neck here. Yeah, when I was in the same situation last year when I refinanced my home, the rates were fantastic and I got lucky doing it then. And now I want a car, and the timing now for buying a new pre-owned vehicle is working against me. It was the same. When I bought a car, I was like, this is like the worst time to do it. But I think it actually turned out it wasn't the worst time to do it. He makes the case that markets are so inefficient that it's almost like nothing can be relied upon as a fact of how the markets will work. Well, like I said, there are a couple of empirical properties about markets that, well, I think when you really understand them, you realize how significant they are, and that they can provide powerful edge. But second of all, I think that there are situations where you can acquire enough information about the market to see an inefficiency and confidently trade on it. It's not going to be every moment, but you can find those situations. But it is true that the markets are just really very inefficient. That's really why I think that's kind of like the great secret, the big lie. The markets are inefficient. We want to think that markets are efficient, right? That's a really big part of like our national identity is capitalism, and capitalism is efficient. But it's not that capitalism it doesn't work or is inefficient. It's just that the market itself is not efficient in the way that we think about it. It doesn't accurately price in all available information. Not at all. And when you go and you tell everybody that it's efficient and they just try and go along with it, it just makes it worse, right? But that doesn't mean that you can't still take a scientific approach to it and make money from it. It just means that it's going to be really, really hard, right? They've been, I mean, it's not like they're not testing these edges, right? They were down, now they're up. You think that they'll break higher again like they did yesterday? I'm kind of wondering if they do. Like maybe they settle back to 1.6. I don't think that 1.6 is like an unreasonable value to be at ahead of the FOMC. Yeah, I feel heavy. I was a freaking baby. What do I got to do with this kid? I think that he is ADHD, and that because of that, he's having difficulties sleeping. So what do I do? Start feeding him melatonin? I know, the same system that once gave us subprime mortgage collateralized debt obligations no investor could possibly truly understand now gave us stock market trades that occurred fractions of a penny at unsafe speeds using order types that no investor could possibly truly understand. That's not the problem, right? The problem is that there are structural inefficiencies in a limit order book, right? Like you gotta understand this. So I just what I'm trying to say, because it's not anything wrong with any of you guys. It's just like people were telling me this for forever, and until I went and I looked into it and I learned all of the math about it, didn't understand it. I didn't understand the significance of it. I wasted years. It was all right in front of me. And I wasted years because I didn't understand how significant it was. Okay. There are properties proven, well, I mean, we should still say that they're theories because, we can always discover more information. That's the scientifically valid way of saying it. But there are proven tendencies in order flow and markets that, from our best evidence, we believe are caused by structural inefficiencies. That is, the way that the market is set up, the way that the rules work and everything create these inefficiencies. Talking to a programmer type about the trading business is a bit like talking to the house plumber at work in the basement about the card game the Mafia Don was running upstairs. Well, so one I can tell you about is structural inefficiency in the market. That has very little application to what is the current market context and, what is the Federal Reserve going to do on Wednesday? It's a different issue, right? But part of what we get from knowing about the structural inefficiency out there and the way that the market works is that this whole idea that we should just ignore all of that stuff and be completely uninformed is just foolish. I don't think that anybody that truly understood the math behind it would say that the right way to trade is to be uninformed. There's so much power in being an informed trader that if you have the ability to be the informed trader, you should always go for it. You won't always be the informed trader. And so the real edge, I suppose, is in knowing when you're informed and knowing when you're not, which is why I'm sitting on the hot sidelines right now. Maybe they're pushing new highs here. I mean, at 29, it's not as significant because they spent quite a bit of time touching 29.5 in the pre-market, but kind of looks like they want to create an up move again today. And we are getting the S&P 500 opening here. It's pretty slow open, isn't it? This just kind of looks like this is going to be a snoozer of a market. So usually we tend to get, good moves before FOMC, but not only, and sometimes it just goes dead end. So far, it's been looking like that. But let's see. Maybe they do push through 29.5 and you get a really strong trend in the treasury here. Right. And I continue to just sit here. And when I'm looking at cumulative delta, there's about 13,000 contracts, 10 to 13,000 contracts buying since we were down at 25. That's still kind of like a meh. That's still kind of a meh move. What do you know about the 2010 flash crash? I'm reading what Michael Lewis writes now, and I remember this too well, but not from a trading perspective. Well, they lie about it, is what I know. So there's kind of two things that are pointed to about the flash crash that people kind of say triggered it. One was Navinder Singh, who used to work for Futex, which Futex was the professional prop shop out there that eventually went defunct, by the way. Not everybody at Futex was making money, I have come to learn. But some of the more experienced hats, when Futex fell apart, went and made their own thing and became Axia, right? That's where Axia comes from. So Navinder, he was a guy that used to dominate the markets before all of the robots took over. And he was doing some things. He had used his technical expertise to kind of do some things that were kind of screwing up some robots. So they kind of blame him. There was also a kind of like a fat finger trade. Somebody put in a futures trade that was just like really, really big. Okay. And that caused the move. And they say, and that's what caused the flash crash. But the reality is that the markets are, the way that the robots work is that when you're having an excursion against you, they pull their orders as they calculate the amount of volume that they're getting against them. Right? In other words, if you're market making and you're taking contracts at every price, there are models about how you need to adjust your price based on the order flow that's coming in. Okay. And there's a point at which the market makers have had so much adverse excursion against them that you just turn it off. You just turn it off. And that's basically what happened, is they just turned it off, and then there was like literally no liquidity. And so they just slipped through it. So it's really the robots. It's really the market making robots, and they just don't want to take responsibility for it, because then what would that mean? Like, you're not allowed to pull your orders during a big market crash like that, which means that they would lose money. Yeah. So of course they don't want us to talk about it. So they make up all of these excuses like, well, it's because some people can execute faster. So we need to have an exchange that's a slow exchange. No, that wasn't it. That just helps the big institutions. That's my opinion. I shouldn't put that one out as a fact, but that's my opinion on the flash crash. Obviously, some of those things that I shared with you are pretty easily verified facts, but my take on what it means is obviously an opinion. Well, they did trade into 30 and then backed off immediately. E-mini looks bullish for the moment, but it's still kind of slow. Are we seeing anything? Well, so something that we are seeing in this move that we should note is that there is not as much spreading activity in it yet. They all moved up together. The treasuries did. See, this is where I was looking before, and this is where I have to look now. I don't like it. But if I move it back to where it was, you won't be able to see the light as well. What do you think? Shouldn't worry about it too much. One thing I suppose I could do is I could move Twitter and stuff around. Kind of depends on what I think is more important at the time, I guess. I guess I'm over here more just because I still don't have any plans to make a move. I shouldn't tell you that, really, because then you're just like, okay, I'm not going to watch that today then. You're not going to take a trade. You should be like, guys, I'm stocking a trade. I don't know if I'm going to do it, but I'm going to stock. I'm stocking, building it all up for you guys, and then never actually end up doing anything. I would ask how many people look at the screen. I would listen more than look. Yeah. I probably could spend a lot more time looking over here and just talking to her, but I like to talk to the camera. I feel like I need to practice that. But you're right. Probably most of you guys don't have the screen up where you can even see. You say RTY dumped? It doesn't, small caps have not been doing too great in this environment, have they? Jay's had a long this whole time, so he's making some money, but I think it was kind of luck since he took it long before the open. He took it like around 7:05. Well, it's just here. I'll move it. Since we're not doing anything else, I'll move it. Okay, let me show you where I had it before. Okay. Okay, so now I need to adjust where it's looking a little bit. That's a little, okay. So I need to adjust it up just a tad. Or maybe let's just zoom in out. Okay, so see, like it doesn't completely cover it, but you see what I mean? So that's why I moved it. But here now, when I look at the camera, I think it looks a lot better, and I'm not moving my head nearly as much, right? So it's kind of like there's no perfect setup. Maybe I should move the, well, I don't know. Could move the shelf there and put it in the shelf, and then you definitely would see it. Yeah, in the grid so that I can place myself correctly. Oops, wrong way. too much. There, that's perfect. From a bilanguage perspective, if you look down over and over, you look less confident. Yeah, probably. I do kind of wonder if it's a problem, but I don't know what you do about it. This way, where I want to be looking when I'm trading is pretty close to the camera, right? I still have to look all the way down here to see you guys. I wonder if I can change that chat so that the most recent chats are at the top. Yeah, the background does look nice, doesn't it? I think so too. Like, I think the way that the lights and everything is done has really worked well. Kind of looking at it now, and I'm like, because I want to make add more colors to the sign, but I don't know if you'd really be able to tell if that would change that much. Need something more with more sparkle on the shelf, like a tungsten cube. Well, the E-mini still seems up, but it's maybe been 7 points up. So the E-mini just looks more constrained than usual as well. The Treasury still looks like it's on a fairly good trend, though. You tell me, if I slouch, then it can, but I don't usually sit like that, right? So I think as long as we can see it a little bit, I think we're okay. Just enough for it to be interesting. Okay, that's interesting. So the Treasuries took a step back there. Jay didn't get any kind of sell signal yet, has he? Nope, not really. Need to come back over here and have a tweet deck on. Mostly says House could vote as soon as Thursday. Yes, we already had that. We already heard that. Okay, Jake Sherman, Pelosi in a closed meeting tells Democratic lawmakers that outstanding items in reconciliation are climate, with disagreements from Manchin, prescription drugs, and immigration. Those are big items. Oh my gosh, they really still want to have immigration in there? Good grief. See, I don't like it as it just doesn't look as good as it did where it was way over there. Now I'm thinking really seriously about moving it. Can I move it and have the bookshelf going the other way? Tough call. I don't know if that would work or not. Treasury is still down like 2 ticks, but still pretty meh. Still not really doing a whole lot of anything. Okay, now it's coming. I don't know. 615 seems like a fine place. I kind of suspect there's still some up action though. If they come all the way down to the low and then push down to 23, then I'm like really wrong, and I should have gotten in here, but I'm not. The decision I'm making is to not do it. You could remove the top shelf and place the white bookcase under the ticker, then angle the camera at the wall with the TV screen and the ticker. Yeah. But, well, actually, hold on. The bookshelf comes in 2 parts, but the top part starts where the alpacas are, right here. So I can take that off. There would still be this gap here. Perhaps that's fine. And then, but then I would also kind of feel like, well, if my head's here, you know, I think I can move this even further over here, and then my head would be here. Also kind of makes me wonder, like, should I have the headphones? Actually, I should, because we need financial juice, even though we don't have it today. Even though, like, they're not releasing anything today. It's like, it would be nicer to just not wear the headphones, but I wear headphones too much. Like, when I die and they exhume my body a million years from now, and they're just going to see this dent in the top of my skull, and they're going to be like, why do these guys have these dents in their heads? E-Mini's pushing there on the highs now. I don't know. If we're getting bored, we could try scalping the micro, right? Let's see here. Oh, do I not have a 4? I'll add one. I'll add one in the strategy manager. I like the headphones and the retro mic. Yeah, I like the retro mic for sure. Do this on the experimental one. 1 point. Missed it. Elon tweeting that there's no contract yet with Hertz. Hertz says deliveries have already started. Tesla price is still rising. Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into his tweet, but I wouldn't read too much into the rise in the price either, because I don't think that it's really justified by the fundamentals. Oh, did that not work? That did not work. 1 point. Did I put the right number in? Oh yeah, I did. I screwed it up. 4 and 4. Okay. Woohoo! I think that was pure luck, but hey, I got it. The Treasury was kind of starting to look down for a second, but then they thought better of it, I think. And that 28.5 is once again kind of holding things. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad to just take the whole top part off. I'm starting to like this idea. Except for that, I put these strips up there, and I'm gonna have to move them again. I'm gonna have to go buy more and move them again. And hopefully when I take the top part off, it doesn't look stupid. Yeah, I guess all of those shells, like the two top shells, is just kind of like nothing anyways. I could put it over there. But then I'm gonna, well, that would be where my head goes, but I kind of feel like that there's like a big space there now. Oh, I need to move that piece of tape. I don't know. It's not too bad right now. Let's just do this for a week. See how we feel about it. And then in a week, if we're still like, yeah, let's move it though, then we'll do that. Or I could just lean over like this. By the way, what is oil doing here? Oil's still kind of all over the place, looks like. Well, I should keep my eye on the order flow in the Treasury, but right now I'm not seeing much of anything. They may push for another move up, though. We'll see. Micro Ether futures contracts start on the CME on December 6th. Cool beans, I guess. That means that we can probably finally try and arbitrage at Ethereum and Bitcoin, huh? Let's come in, check the zero hedge. This is going to be a long stream because it's like this market is just not so great, is it? Well, that's okay though. We get plenty of action tomorrow, right? China sparks buying panic after telling households to stockpile food ahead of winter. You know what? My dollar index and Bitcoin chart is screwed up right now. Well, I think as long as my robot's in a winning trade, that I should let him continue. Not screw that up. I was checking for an empirical evidence on Squid Game crypto. What do you mean by that? I don't get how anybody thought that crypto was a good idea. It was like a token that you literally cannot sell. Like that you had to have a token to sell and that they didn't give you the token to sell. It's like kind of crazy. Like, how is that not a scam? Well, I don't know, man. I was talking to a friend the other day about, like, you know, how much evidence do you need? I need to have on things. I think that for me, it only kind of comes up when, like, we're talking about it on the stream, right? But I certainly see some people out there that I'm like, this is just so obviously fraud. Like, I want to be able to report it and somebody actually look into it. And right now, I think they just ignore it. They say it was a scam. It's so funny how in cryptocurrencies, it's literally just come down to marketing. It's 100% marketing. I'm still kind of interested in China's telling their people to buy stuff or to buy food. Yeah. Did you guys see? I'm sure you guys all saw the live stream. Oh my gosh, did you see that? Like, what stood out to me wasn't the fact that it literally just went to zero in an instant, but like just the whole thing. Like the guy that was streaming and the way that he reacted to it and everything that he was saying before it and all of that was just like, what a zoo, man. What a zoo. I feel bad because I see some of this stuff and I feel like this wouldn't be happening if I was better at my job. You know what I mean? Maybe there's nothing that I can do for some people, but I feel like that I missed some opportunities and didn't work as hard as I should have in some places, and that maybe if I had done that there would be less people out there prone to this kind of nonsense. Is that thinking too highly of myself? YouTube finances know you are the stock market messiah. I think really you should call me the Muhaldib or whatever it is that they say in Dune, right? Not the Messiah per se. The Muad'Dib, right? Is that what it is? Muad'Dib. I'm the stock market Muad'Dib. Man, Captain Bryce, you really want me to look at Tesla, don't you? That's where the money's at. By the way, this trend up in the E-mini, very, very high degree of consistency to it. YouTube Finance says I second looking at Tesla. I mean, if I could see the order flow in it, I would. Just the most irrational. I It's really crazy. But how many times have we said that in the past 2 years about Tesla, right? It never ends. It never ends. I'm starting to think that Captain Price hangs out in like everybody's Discord or YouTube live. Why is that? And then he was trolling us. He was goading us and stuff. I was into talking about other people. Oh my gosh. So here was another thing that happened that I think is kind of funny, because I really do, like, I do not have the attention span to sit down and watch somebody else's stream. I wonder if I never started streaming, would I sit and be in a stream like that? I don't know. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. But I just don't sit and watch other people stream, and I kind of really try to not pay too much attention to what other people are doing. But so with all the disclaimers, right? On Futures.io, somebody was saying, "Oh, Matt is like hiding his bad sessions and all of this," and I was like, "No, he's probably just unlisting them like I do, because I want the channel page to be clean, so I unlist the video and I put it in a playlist." And I was like, well, I wouldn't want anybody to be accusing me of that when it's just trying to keep the channel page clean. So I think we should step in here and help people understand what's really going on, right? So I have this back and forth with this guy on the Futures.io thread. I was like, okay, like, what day is it they just say that it's not missing? And he's like, oh, this day. And I'm like, oh, that day is in the playlist. He's like, oh, it is. It wasn't before. Oh, I was wrong. It was always there. It's just I thought it wasn't that one, but it was that one. Because the thing was that that day he ended the stream. When he ended the stream, it was down 16,000. Can you believe that? I don't know if those were sim. I'm pretty sure they were, but I didn't check that. But it didn't happen until the end of the stream. So he thought, no, that's not it, because it was 16,000, and then he thought, oh, I just needed to scroll to the end of it. Yeah. I seen him on TV. Wait, what's TBM? Oh, Trade Spy Matt. Trades by Matt is stating that it was his real personal account. The 16K loss was on his real account? For real? Trades by... Stop it. Because, like... Oh, Matt, dude, if you lost 16K like that, when your biggest loss before, because he had a video, I noticed he had a video that was, he lost 6K, and he said, because I was being stupid, right? Which I understand. I mean, I've done this shit before, right? And then you keep going, and you have a 16K loss, like... We need an intervention, my boy. Let's talk about what you're doing and why it's going that way, because it's clearly not working for you. You know what I mean? He believes his read so much that he's willing to really? Come on. Is that really what it is, though? Because, like, again, I don't watch, but... Like, here's the thing. I do care about Matt, because he's not out there saying, "Oh, I'm making tons of money," and you know, he hasn't been dishonest like some people have, right? So for that, I feel like he deserves some kudos, and you know, I've sucked and people helped me, so I kind of feel like, you know, if we can help him, we should. But it's not my place to come in and be like, okay, here's what I'm going to help you now. Here's what you get to do. He might not appreciate that, right? But I thought that he was just reading price action, and that, you know, it was having the wide stop and everything. But now you're saying that he really thinks that he has a real read on it, and reading the delta in the NQ, it's almost meaningless to read the NQ delta. Also, he reads it wrong, missing the fact that delta going long and price not going up is bad. I to be honest, I haven't completely sorted out what you do with delta, and like their correlation between delta and the S&P 500 is pretty tenuous, and it's been enough that I just, you know, I only use delta to try and read the meta orders, right? Like, I want to come in here and look at it afterwards and say, okay, well, we did move down. What does the cumulative delta say? It's pretty consistent. That looks like that was a sell meta order, you know? But in terms of it being like, it's going to predict which way things are going to go, nope. Unreliable. And I have yet to find any purely technical setup that is reliable. I found some that maybe in the time period that I tested them, they're like 55%, but still not very reliable. Now, I found some that once you factor in market context and everything else, that it seems like that we can be fairly consistent with it, but it's still really hard. It's still really hard. Any good? So I have a video coming out, hopefully next Monday, Skinny Guy, that's about starting with reading the DOM. And it's going to be a 3-parter. So I started out learning how to use the DOM by doing the No BS day trading course and the education that comes with Jigsaw. Those are all both very good. And my course isn't going to be to replace them. I think that I'm providing new information that I think will be really useful in helping you learn how to read the DOM on your own. So, anyone got Windows 11? No. I would not recommend using Windows 11 right now, guys. Just to be frank. I haven't installed it on my machine, but I investigated it quite a bit. I spent a good day or two reading everything I could about Windows 11. And there's a couple of things there about it that I think in the short term, it's not what traders want to do. Wait for the service pack. if you absolutely must wait for the service pack, but it doesn't appear to me that it really adds anything in. But I have the Jigsaw course, but I am just stumped by it all. What do you mean by stumped by it all? Is it because you don't understand, you don't feel that you understand the concepts are being taught? Or is it because you don't understand how to translate that into action? I would like a Cliff Notes version. There is no Cliff Notes version. Like here's the scary thing about it, skinny guy. That is the Cliff Notes version. like there's some really crazy math that you can get into with this stuff. And that is just like way too difficult to try and translate to you guys in an online video. And so you get these people that come into some of this stuff through experience and they share it with you, but like you're not getting the full context, so you don't understand all of the significance of certain things. Greg says you cannot read the DOM and the ES right now. I'm wondering, Greg. Well, you would probably say that back a couple of years ago when you were doing really well that you could read the ES, right? It seems to me like I've never been able to read the ES DOM. Like I have a really hard time with it. Maybe if I was just going for these small little, 4-tick scalps, but man, I've had a really hard time doing the ES. I suppose over the last 3 months that my sim trades in ES have been pretty okay, but you don't even have a subscription for the DOM? I find it really useful. I mean, I'm not saying that the DOM is like the only way to trade, but it's the only way for me to trade. I couldn't trade without it. I agree trading. Oh, yeah, you're saying if you're going to trade it over here in the ES, just go for the super tiny ones. Yeah, it's different here in the Treasury. Because it's just a different instrument, right? Like, you got to understand, like, there's a lot of things, empirical properties about order books and how things move. And yeah, you can pull some of that out from indexes, but it's different because there is just a lot of randomness in an index. What other asset do you recommend starting out with? Well, those are the, so my course when it comes out in Jigsaw and No BS Day Trading are 3 really good starting resources. And then, I mean, if you want to get into the advanced resource, then you want to read research studies and Jean-Philippe Beauchat's Markets Under the Microscope. I know Seth is, yeah, when you're starting out, I like the 10-year. Or the micros. I tell you what, the micros, it's not a bad game. It's not a bad game in the micros. You can take a much wider trade. I like it. And I think that it works better for trying to make an informed trade based on market information. It's just today, it's kind of a little slow. You don't get sucked up on, well, you can. The thing in the 10-year is that you're going to see stuff changing constantly, and you can really fool yourself into reading a bunch into it. I like DOM trading since it's great dad. Yeah, so when I was at the, I'll talk about this in my video, but when I worked for the bank, they told me, oh, if you want to trade, you really have to understand how to use the DOM. But I think that a lot of that had more to do with the execution bit of it, right? Like, it's just, I think it's a little bit different on a chart when you're trying to enter an order on the chart I mean, you can like right click and everything, but it's a little bit different from like actually clicking on the numbers. You know what I mean? And so that's the primary thing, is that the execution is just the best on the DOM. Yeah, there's not much. Yeah, but here again. Yeah. ES markets are liquid, and with micro contracts, I don't know. I have found that you can lose a lot of money on micro contracts in the ES if you really want to. Okay, I have done it. I think I lost like $500 with micros once. Okay, so the real issue here that you guys are glossing over is that it's just crazy hard to find an actual real edge in ES, and I still wonder. I still wonder if there's just too much noise in it to really pull an edge out of it most of the time. I think that there's just less situations where you know something that's not factored into the markets that is extreme enough that you can really confidently take a trade in it in the MES, like you can in some other markets, because of the just pure amount of noise over there. Do you think NQ is any better in that regard or not? Well, in some respects, NQ is probably worse, but the advantage on NQ is that you can try and arbitrage NQ, right? So when I say arbitrage, I mean like you can look at the other instruments and see that NQ moved too much there and try and take it against that with a reasonable stop. I would just like to net one trade a day. Is that too much to ask? No, it's not. But even a really good strategy, if you're above 50%, I think that to realistically get above 50% and it be a profitable strategy, you either need to have an informational edge or be doing arbitrage. A lot of people, they just take bigger stops, and that usually doesn't work out in the end. Like, I think that that's where some of Matt's problems might be, is that he was taking a stop that was larger than his target, and I think that it kind of fools you. It tricks you into believing that you're really good at this when it was just noise. And I'm not bashing on him, but it's just something I've seen so many times where the people that trade the large stops have a harder time when their strategy starts doing poorly. Like, not only is the drawdown just more extreme, but they have more difficulty moving on from it because in their mind they were the greatest trader. Whereas if you do something that's more 50-50, you learn pretty quick that you don't know shit. NQ is in meat grinder. I do think that there are some situations where you can arbitrage NQ. It's hard, but I think it can be done. I've spoken to a number of people trying to play that game, and they were having a reasonable amount of success with it. So I think if you really got crazy good at it, you could do it. But I don't know. But I would still argue that where you should trade should be where you're able to get the strongest informational edge. And I believe that, for me, that is in the treasury market. You had a friend who's been doing it for 5 years and his max drawdown was 10 ticks? No way. No way. Really? That's pretty crazy. If FDH, if you can really prove that, that'd be something else. Oh, why do I have two ES DOMs? This one is the full ES contract and this one is the micros. So I don't need to have like a full DOM over here, but I just do, But this one is mostly for clicking. That's what he says. I'd be skeptical, but I don't know. That tight of a drawdown, I don't know, man. That sounds unrealistic, but I never say never. Should never say never, but that sounds unrealistic to me. Me too. I don't believe. Yeah. But like that's the thing, FTH. Like people play these games. Like it's maybe not even a conscious thing. It's just like I got to tell you, if there's anything that I think helps, let go of the ego, man. And the best way to let go of the ego is to just let everybody see you doing shit, doing terrible, right? Because it's very often we as humans have a really odd way of somehow making ourselves appear positive no matter what, right? I think this goes back to, again, like, you have to understand the way that people work, at least the way that I've been coming to learn people over the past few years, right? There's this whole thing about tribal dynamics that, like, what would gain confidence in the eyes of the tribe, and how do you keep group cohesiveness in the tribe? So they tend to want to go along with things, but then there's also this really strong desire to fit in and to look good to other people and all of these sorts of things. Because back when these evolved, if you didn't have that stuff, you would die. You would get kicked out of the tribe and you would die. Now it doesn't matter. And it's really an advantage to not care what other people think, right? To just trade and do the best that you can. And if you do terrible, let other people see it, right? Like Matt, I say bravo to him. He's trading, he's putting it alive, and he's being honest about it. And I do think that he should probably rethink his whole trading. But he's taking the right approach, at least to that in that respect, right? He's maybe less ego than the normal person. But so one of the things that will happen is you'll have this strategy, and like when you're trading it well and the way that this works correctly, like this is what I've done, right? With the way that I've been trading, I don't think I've had a drawdown more than 10 ticks here. Like I maybe had like two $10 losers in a row, and that's it, right? Looks really, really good. But I'm very conveniently discounting the spread trades that I took that I lost like $100-200 on, right? And I had to make all of that back, and I basically only came back to break even. And when you factor in the commissions and costs and everything else like that, it's still a loss, right? But you can see how you can kind of twist it, right? Where you can, well, those ones don't count because those were an experiment, and I'm not sure I'm going to do those again. The spread trades. Yeah, I need to do more research before I go into a spread trade again, because I don't think that the edge that I had was strong enough to do what I was doing. Right. So you just say, oh, I'm not going to do that anymore, so let's just take those out of the results. Right. But it's not accurate to what actually happened either, is it? Like, I think it'd be a useful thing to know, somebody who was looking at their performance and thinking about trading it themselves. But you also have to be cognizant that even if you don't intend to be doing it, you might present something in a way that is way more favorable to yourself than it really should be, right? And I think that a lot of people in trading do that because they think, oh yeah, you can totally do it like this all the time. I didn't do it like that last month because of reasons, but because only a 10 tick drawdown, that seems. In the treasury, if you get like a 16 tick drawdown in your scalping in the 10-year, and you get 16 tick, then you might need to think about, you might want to take a break, and you're probably doing something wrong at that time. But I haven't had this kind of a blow up in a long time, but I've certainly had days where like I traded really poorly, and it seems like when you get into that mode that you'll do it over and over again, right? And the only thing that I've ever been able to do to get kind of pull myself out of that is like go back to sim, take on very small amounts of risk, start over, because it's like revenge trading or something. Ooh, it hits you, man. It hits you. But I don't know. There's all of those things, and then, and those help. But then the reality is that if you don't really actually have an edge, then what good is it? And if you believe that you have an edge, why are you so sure that you really have an edge on that? So I think many, many times I thought that I had an edge with this in order flow or that in order flow. And like, I have a pretty good read on order flow. And I think I know a lot of things on there, but like, I kind of look at it and I'm like, is it enough edge on its own for me to make money? And it seems like it's not. I have to include other things for it to work. Like a knowledge of the markets, and how well I do has very, very much to do with how well I understand that market. Like right now, I don't understand why the treasuries seem to be buying ahead of the FOMC, right? This would be a time where I would probably try and trade it a bunch and fail. I must ask him for Evan. Yeah, I mean, if you can get him to show you broker statements for those 5 years. I like it. Like seriously, if he showed you a broker statement for 5 years and it really was a minimum or a maximum drawdown of 10 ticks, like you guys should, cross out all of his personal information and stuff and then go put that out. Like, I think that there would be some researchers and a bunch of people that would like to look at that, like that's crazy. That seems like a crazy consistency. Checking Twitter here. Zero hedge U.S. investors appear to be nearly the sole driver behind the cryptocurrency bull run. It's become apparent that U.S. investors have been nothing short of the pillar of crypto's recent rise from relative obscurity to $2.7 trillion asset class. I think that's probably largely accurate. I think that Tether has come in and supported things at key points that has allowed that to happen, but that the majority of the money is coming from U.S. investors, yeah. Greg says, I've never had an edge. I've been lucky trading the inside noise, I have to be honest with myself. Well, it seems to me, Greg, that you can make money from noise trading, right? You can make money from noise trading. I don't know if it's just kind of like maybe not worth it sometimes. Agreed. Small targets. Yeah. Small targets, you just get a little bit of the noise. I don't know. Well, the way that you do it with that one is you have multiple targets, right? And that's how you take on the risk and do it. Because otherwise, if I'm only doing it one, and if I'm only doing one contract, even if it's a small target, I still have to have an edge that tells me it's going to go to my target before my stop. That's very hard to find. I'm in a chart room right now, and all of these people are getting so excited about the S and the all-time high, and I don't see anything to do. Right? Well, because when I'm looking at it, like when you and I look at it, I don't see the all-time high. I mean, I think that the all-time high matters, but I don't see it. I just see the order flow and the range, and I'm looking at this and I'm like, this is a constrained market compared to the past. And especially the treasuries, even though they're floating up, they're slow. I guess that last little move, that stop run past 30.5 was a little bit faster. But we're back to 131 even, and there's big volume trading there. Now, what's going to be interesting to me is if tomorrow morning the rise in the treasury market continues even further. And then we get to FOMC. What if they've been rising this whole time and then FOMC comes and they're crazy hawkish, you know? It's just, why are they taking this trade? I don't know. Seems like hyper risky. Justin Label on Twitter, we all agree Squid Coin was never worth 224 billion nor the 5 billion reported by Fortune 500 Fortune 4 days ago, nor the 175 million reported by CNBC 5 days ago. Most will agree SHIB and Doge aren't actually worth 36 billion each. Please apply the same skepticism to claims of all of the quote-unquote market caps of Bitcoin and Ethereum. Yeah. If the rise in Bitcoin has been driven largely by consumers, what happens when there's a bear market in Bitcoin? It's going to happen. It's not going to go up forever. You have a situation where like a whole generation of people has their savings wiped out. What is that going to do? Is Dwack doing poorly again today? Because I still have Dwack up on my Twitter and they sound unhappy today. There's still a lot of tweets about it. Holy crap. Or you look at the number of tweets just on the WAC, for instance, and then you look at the futures markets and you see how few tweets about futures markets is. It really makes you realize how niche what we do is, right? And while I was yamming, they went and took 131. Well, I wonder going back. Yeah. You know, I said, I don't know why it would go up, so we may get a strong trend and I'm just going to miss it. Which kind of is like, I knew it was going to happen, right? Even though I didn't know why it's happening. And I didn't want to do it because I didn't know why it was happening. Maybe. So is that like, if I'm pretty sure that's going to happen even though I don't know why, is it still worth taking a trade there? I don't know. I think I've done that many times and gotten screwed, though. Squid Game coin is terribly cheap right now. It was worth 2,000 yesterday, and now it is worth 0.3 cents. Think of the upside. Futures Trader 71 being sarcastic. Oh, man. I wonder how much money was actually lost in Squidcoin. Like the guys that liquidated, how much money did they actually make? Does somebody calculated that? So tell me this, Greg. If you're in a chart room right now and you don't think that stuff works, then why be in the room? So I'm noticing a lot of you guys do this stuff, and I don't understand the motivation. You just enjoy watching people trade? I think it would be great to have a whole generation of people watch me lose money instead of losing their own money. That would be a good thing for them, right? Greg says, good question. I'm in your Discord at your interest rate site. Oh, yeah. That's not the one that you're talking about as a charting room, though, are you? Oh, okay. It's a friend. I understand. Okay. The thing that's frustrating about the Discord is, it's pretty general. Like anybody comes in, and it's a different group of people than the people that come in here to the live stream, and so they, it's hard for me to like imprint the culture on it like I can here in chat, right? So you get a lot of people that come in and want to say, "Oh, I do this. Here's this edge. Just use this." And I'm be like, how do you know that's an edge? And they don't. You say lately the Discord has been it has been a lot better lately. There's still one or two guys. They haven't been talking as much. But there was one guy in particular that I've really been like, I'm not gonna ban you, but I'd rather you not talk. Well, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna be fair and let people talk? I post one negative thing about trading the ES or NQ and they want me banned. Ah, really? Oh man. I mean, there have been points where I felt like I was a really judicious, mean moderator, but in general, I think I've been pretty lax on things, right? Then I hear some stuff on some Discords. Like there's literally this Discord out there where they were saying you're not allowed to send private messages to people. If somebody sends a private message to you, come and show me a picture of it and I'll ban them and take away their license. It's just like, what? But I think that there are some rooms out there where the guy that's running it really wants the people in the room to be 100% dependent on them, which is just so devious and awful, right? To us, it sounds so devious and awful, but to them, I assume that they're totally into it, right? It's a revolving door with these combine people blow out in minutes. Yeah. Well, you know, something else that bothers me is that just the way that people disappear, you know. Like, if you come in and okay, if I were to just give up futures trading forever, I'm never going to put another, not even a sim trade out on there ever again. I'm just going to focus all my interest into something else, which, you know, I probably would be a good thing. I probably could make more money doing something else. I don't know what that thing would be, but maybe I could be more productive doing something else. I love futures trading, right? But if that ever happened, I would tell you guys, you know what I mean? But there's a lot of people that come in, they'll be involved in the community, they'll try for like a year, and then they lose interest in it and they give up. Which is, to me, is kind of like weird, because to me, I don't know, maybe I just put more effort into it than most people, but like I have to wake up early and everything has to be based around getting in here, and my computer is set up for me to day trade, and I've got all of this stuff for me to help me make videos and to stream to you guys. And I just can't imagine how anybody just like gives up and then doesn't say anything. You know what I mean? But the majority of people, that's what they do. And then all of the people that are still in it, they never get the, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. You know, like when you go to college or when you're trying out for a sport, right? And there's a bunch of people that will, like in wrestling, man, that first week of wrestling, they make it tough. They're trying to get you conditioned. Fair enough. But it's just, it's hard. And there's a lot of people that give up in that first week because it's too hard. Right? When I took physics, when there was a physics course at the university level that was required for all engineering people. And it was also like the base level physics course if you were actually going to take physics. And so they kind of had turned it into a washout course. And I think that probably half of that course quit. There was some people, I remember there was this one girl that we knew because she was in another class of ours, I think. And she wanted to be a physics major, and she gave up on that because of that class, which I thought was unfortunate, because I thought like, well, you should just stick with it and you'll get over that. But no, they had had enough. That was not what they wanted to do, right? Lots of people drop out. And when you see the other people drop out, you go, oh, maybe this isn't for me, right? But what happens in trading is, because you don't see the other people drop out, you only see the people that are bragging about them making money, or at least trying to appear to everybody that they're making money. And so you think you stand a chance. Day trading community truly is unique, huh? Greg says, I tell everyone to come here. Speculator Seth is 100% honest with day trading and will help. Also, you have extensive programming experience, math skills, trading theory, and thank you. I think especially, I really have to thank I forget, I can't remember how to say his name right now, but the guy that tuned us on to Markets Under the Microscope. Because I was reading a lot of research studies before that, but once I read that book, I understood what I was reading so much better. I think that's made such a big difference on this stream. But thank you, Greg. I get a little disheartened sometimes when like threads will show up on Reddit or on Futures.io about like, what are your favorite trader YouTube channels, and people don't mention me. I'm like, what are my followers doing? You guys just don't visit those forums and say anything, because I'm not getting the word of mouth. The word of mouth is not going around. But Greg has been trying. So thank you, Greg. There's somebody in Discord saying that against their better judgment, they are shorting Tesla. Oh boy. Alligator says his guess is the start of the month flow plus tactical positioning pre-FOMC for why we're seeing the slow rise. But he also sees only technical targets today. Ergo, he's not so sure that it's like a big bet. Because people want to see gambling? Is that it? Maybe. Yeah, you're probably right. I'm not entertaining enough. People want to see me lose $1,000 and then go, whoa, oh my gosh. Like that guy that lost all of the money on the Squid Game coin. Do you think that Mr. Burry should close it? I thought he closed that a long time ago. No? Oh, man. See, here's the thing is like, I don't think Burry understands markets are inefficient and prices are inelastic like we do. Because you wouldn't take the trades, you know? Like, I don't think that you would say it the way that he says it, you know? It's like he thinks that something's overvalued, that it must come back, and that's not the case at all. I mean, it does come back. But honestly, if there was a bubble out there that never came back, would we actually know that it was in a bubble? Like, would we actually know that that was the case, you know? No, we would say like, oh no, that's the one that actually it was like, it really worked out, you know? Like maybe Apple has been in a bubble this whole time. And how would you prove that it wasn't, you know? But Barry, he sounds like really confident about some of the things that he says. And then like this happens and it's for sure like, okay. Tesla's nailed all of these short gurus. Yeah. So what matters is orders, right? That's the thing is that I think that if you understand that orders move markets, then it really changes your perspective because now you realize, okay, you're like, yeah, something can be mispriced for a really long time because the order flow is just going to continue coming in through. And it also kind of makes you careful about making predictions because you kind of know that somebody can just decide to submit a different order just randomly and it could have an effect on the market. So how accurate can your predictions really truly be? You kind of have to just wait for the right moment where the confluence of a informational inefficiency and the new orders and the timing and the context of the technical levels and everything kind of come into a confluence where you get a really highly probable trade, which is not today, unfortunately. So I didn't do nothing and I'm proud of myself. Could you ask him this question via email? And are we close to wrapping up for, you know? Oh yes, let's email Michael Burry and ask him why he does that. Do you have a title? Let's what should we talk about today? Or what should we put in today's title? I should put something about like a Squid Game coin, but it doesn't really matter. You know, because we unlist the streams afterwards, what we should put in the title should be the most descriptive things for when you're going back and you want to find this day, right? Yeah, there you go. Pre-FOMC slow grind up. I like it. Well, thank you. I know it was kind of a slow day today, but you know, you guys stuck with me through the whole stream. I appreciate it. Okie dokie. Tesla, yeah, I could mention them, but if I was still putting them publicly and I was trying to get people to click on them, then that sort of thing would matter. But I've learned that it just doesn't matter enough. Are you just tuning in, Stick? Oh, I'm sorry. Now it's time for me to go. Give me a few minutes to get ready for work. Morning things. Yeah, learn to sit on your hands when there's no edge. Yeah, I think that me coming in and sitting on my hands, it wasn't just because I didn't have any edge. It was also a little bit about where I felt like I was today, right? Because I didn't sleep very well. Because I did kind of suspect that we were going to have a move up, right? Hey, stay profitable, friends.